And looks like all right, we have made it. We are live on the YouTube. So, hello and welcome to everyone who is watching the Written Melanin channel, wherever this day may have found you. I'm so glad that you are here. And as you guys can tell, today is not Tuesday, it is Saturday. And I'm not here with the case, but the one, the only, Miss Amanda Ross. And she is the author of To Astera with Love, you guys, which if you have not heard us talking about it, one, you should join our Patreon so that you can hear us talk about it. And two, it is a fantasy with black witches, vampires, and honestly, some of the best world building that I've had the pleasure of reading. And it looks like this. You know, we have our copy and it's on the screen. If you'd like to pick up a copy, then you can do that. There's a link down in the description box below, just so you know. It's an affiliate link, so y'all know how that works. And today, you guys, this is a behind the cover interview with Amanda, and we are just literally going to be talking about her book, about her process. We're going to try to keep it as spoiler free for you guys as possible. But that being said, if you've read the book, you're probably going to know where some of these questions are coming from. So yeah, that's the intro. That's the spiel. So let's just go ahead and get into this. And as you guys know, this is live. So if you are watching this live in real time, then if you have questions for Amanda, drop them in the chat and I will try to make sure she gets a chance to answer them. Yeah, cool. We're all on the same page. Great. And LaKay said that she's loving the color. You guys, today is a pink kind of day. I know it's not Wednesday, but on Saturdays we wear pink. So.
Yes, we were here. And what happened? We both felt like this is the way to go.
Absolutely. It's like some things you just feel in your spirit and you just follow it, you know? But okay, so before we get into the nitty-gritty of your book and all these questions, for the people who have not read your book, can you tell us a little bit about it and basically what the story is about?
Sure. So it's set in America, 2022. There is a vampire president, and there are witches that essentially are out. People know they're witches, they know that they are vampires. Our main character is Mercury. He's a 21-year-old college student, and he basically just wants to go to school, eat burritos, play music, and hang out with his friends. But the world had other plans for him, and after attending a party one night where a rumble happens and it puts him and his friends in danger, he has to travel across the country to get to Astera, which is a big gathering, annual gathering of all witches, held by the Witches' Council. Mercury's aunt and father are on the Witches' Council, and he's hoping to get their help to kind of shake off these frat boy vampires who are chasing Mercury and his friends. There is hip-hop references, magic tattoos, a lot of elemental magic, and if you like any of those, plus a bit of humor with your fantasy, then you'll love To Astera with Love.
Yeah. And I will also personally vouch for To Astera. So if you guys have visited the Melanin Library, on the front page, there's what we call Melanin Library approved books. And To Astera is definitely one of those because when I read it, I was just like, I obviously, like, I knew it was a fantasy, but, you know, having grown up in the era of Twilight, you know, when someone says, hey, I wrote a book about vampires, you're kind of like, it could go left or right with that.
Yeah.
You know? And so, but I was like, you know, we've got vampires, we've got black witches, we've got a road trip, we have, you know, a lot of, it's set in 2022, the president's a vampire. Like, I was just like, there's more to this than what you would initially think. And so when I got into it, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I was hooked from like the first page. I was like, I need to see where this is going, right? So I say all that to say that this is not going to be a Chelsea rant about how great the book is. Just know that I really enjoyed it, and I think you should pick up a copy if it's in your budget or if you're interested. I think you actually have it on sale this week, don't you, Amanda? Until tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah, tomorrow's the last day. It's on sale. So the ebook is $2.99, and it will be. The paperback is on sale currently $5.99, and the sale ends essentially March 1st is when it goes off of sale.
Okay, so you guys heard it. Like, if you go ahead and get the book, that's all I'm saying. All right. But that being said, let's kind of get into this a little bit. And like I said, I'm going to try to keep this as spoiler free as possible. But let's just start with your characters. And you do have a couple of questions from Ben and LaCase. So we'll start with that because just in case you don't know, Benjamin's actually my husband, so we're on the same wavelength a lot of times. And so his first question is actually, where did you find inspiration for your book, and how long did it take you to write it? And I was actually going to ask you the first part of that question, like what was the inspiration for creating this book?
So it was a lot of things. Sure, you've read it, so you can kind of catch the parallels to the 2016 election and all of the, can I cuss on here? All of the shenanigans.
Yeah. We're all adults, so I'm going to say as long as we keep it like PG-13, no F-bombs, we're good.
Yes. Yes. All of the shenanigans and hell that happened with the 2016 election. This book really kind of was my way of working out all of my feelings surrounding that Trump in office. A lot more like police brutality, Black Lives Matter protests kind of, happening more. And I've always loved witches and vampires. That has always been my jam. I love Charmed. I love Buffy. But I also wanted that representation. I'm like, where are the black witches? Where's our magic? Where's our, like, why is it always, brunette and blonde women? Mm-hmm. What about us? And I took all of that, my love for witches and vampires, along with kind of the stuff that was happening in the world, and I thought, this could be a great way to kind of talk about it and work out my feelings.
I like that, because to know me is to know that I'm all about representation, and like 100% of the reason why I do what I do is because like that representation is important. And unfortunately, as Black people, we don't get a whole lot of representation in the fantasy genre and literally any other genre outside of like historical fiction, or like I'll say books where we have to...
How not to be racist.
Yeah, where we have to address racism, and that can get really heavy at times, and that can get really exhausting when the only narrative you see of yourself is in the struggle, and you don't get to like... Okay, I'll say this. I've always found it somewhat interesting that they love to say Black girl magic, but then they don't like to pit Black girls in magical stories. And so I'm just kind of like, I was excited for this because you have a very diverse cast of characters. Like, most of your characters are Black, which I appreciate it, which is honestly why I read the book, because I have a type. But I also like that it wasn't just one type. So that in mind, I'm going to come back to the other half of Ben's question, but what inspired your characters? So for those of you who don't know, the main characters in her story are Mercury. He is the actual witch of the group. And then there is Ellis, his best friend, who I find their dynamic interesting because Ellis is your classic super rich white kid who has his future planned out for him, like taking over daddy's business and type kid, right? Like, if I get in trouble, it ain't a big deal, right? And then, but they're like, they grew up together and they're best friends, and I know that their dynamic got a little stressed during this book. And what does what I guess oh sorry, I have like a million thoughts, you guys, that I want to ask, so let me try to keep them linear for you guys. There's also Joelle and Griffin. I know they're brother and sister. Were they twins? Did I make that up? Or are they actually twins?
No, they're twins.
Okay.
They're twins.
I thought so. I know I wasn't making that up. Okay. They're twins that they meet at this party, and there's Sloane. I love Sloane. She's my favorite. There's no contest. I love her so much. Thank you for writing her character. And Sloane is the resident badass of the group, and like, y'all, she's a little girl with knives, and she can use them. She's dope. Okay. But all that to say, like, what inspired these characters? Like, are they based off of people that you know in real life, or like, how did that come about? Especially only making Mercury the
Yeah,
witch.
so yeah, so a lot of their personalities are based off of people I know in real life. I think Mercury is a little bit of my brother, kind of that swag and that like confidence, but also I wanted to imbue him with a little bit of self-doubt, because I think that we don't see enough stories of Black men specifically where they're allowed to doubt themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They're allowed to be unsure and to think, how can I do this? Because I think the world forces us and them to see themselves as strong. Same thing, with Black women, but I think in a slightly different way. Like, they always have to physically be strong. They physically always have to have it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted, and also, with Mercury being a witch, there's also that extra, well, you're a witch. You can just, snap your finger and take care of things. But I wanted to add that layer of complexity of, maybe I don't know how to do this. And, it isn't YA, it's, Mercury's 21, but I still think there's a bit of a coming of age thread throughout this where Mercury really steps into his full power.
Mm-hmm.
Sloane, she is also my favorite character. She was just so fun to write because I really was able to just let go when I wrote her, and she's that person that she's fiercely loyal. I wanted to include a relationship with Mercury where there was no sexual feeling. There's no sexual tension between Mercury and Sloane. They're just really good friends.
Mm-hmm.
And she always has his back, and she's not afraid to just say what's on her mind. And I envy that a little bit because I've had moments where I'm the youngest of six. So
gotcha.
I've had moments of being like, can I say this? Am I going to get bullied if I say what I want to say? And so that really was that opportunity to do that. And, speaking of Mercury's relationship with Ellis, I wanted to include a token.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice to have the token. It'd be the white guy
Yeah.
for a change.
I love it. I love it so much.
But I wanted to include kind of a problematic and complex relationship, because that's when you have a friend who knows you so completely, you've grown up together, they've been there when you lost a parent, or when you really had personal struggles, and you grow up and maybe you grow apart. How do you reconcile and still have that friendship, especially because Ellis has moments where he says shit that would really get him popped in the mouth if Mercury was not, if they weren't friends. And so I wanted to explore that, and how maybe Ellis could come back around and open his eyes and kind of start to see and be a better person.
Mm-hmm.
And never, him taking front, never him, taking the spotlight, but really kind of being that person that is like, I guess an ally, but like an imperfect ally. Though that's not the intention of this book. If you're white and you're reading it, it's not the intention to center whiteness in this book.
Yeah.
But like I said, I wanted that relationship to be complex and to have readers really wonder, is Ellis a good person? Do I like him? Should I like him? Is it weird if I like him?
Yeah.
Do I want to punch him?
It's like, do I want to punch him in the face? Like, there were moments where I was just like, look, I get that Ellis is the friend, but also somebody needs to check him, and like quickly, because he has questionable moments. But I also appreciate that, he rides for Mercury, and I like that when it came down to him having to make decisions that were going to have consequences, he had Mercury's back when it counted. And so I feel like that makes him redeemable in a sense, but also at the same time, I was just like, bruh, say this one more time. You lucky I'm not in this book, all right?
Yeah. Yes.
But speaking of that, there are a lot of choices that Mercury and friends have to make, specifically in the beginning of the book that kind of kicks off everything. And before we get into like those decisions that have to be made, can y'all tell how hard I'm trying to keep this from being spoilery? One of the questions that was asked in the chat is, your names and places are so creative. Was it difficult for you to develop them? So before we start talking about the decisions that were made and why they had to be made, like what was it like creating this world? Because you've got vampires, you've got witches, you've got different types of magic. You know, you've got an entire witches council. Like it is very in depth, but it's also very closely interwoven with what 2022 could have possibly looked like.
Mm-hmm. So that world building is my jam. It is so fun for me. And with this book, I plotted the world, the magical world, along with the plot of the book. So I'm a plotter. I have an outline that I'm outlining everything, even short stories and everything. And so I plotted the world building at the same time. So listing out the magic, listing out the different powers, writing a little mini history of the Witches' Council so that I could reference back to it, especially in some of the interviews and whatnot. I was referencing that history, and I had to know it in order for the world to feel lived in.
Mm-hmm.
And likewise with the politics, I had to do a little bit of research on that and what happens when bills are passed or what happens when we get a new president, all of that kind of stuff I had to know. So really it's kind of like 3 layers of plotting and world building, and it was fun. But also I had a lot of coffee and a lot of wine while writing this book because it just was a lot. And, I'm also, my weird, I guess, obsession is names and, finding new ways to put names together and all of that. And so I had a list for years of names I really liked. And why I chose Mercury is also, Mercury being the Greek god of communication and flight and all of that. And Mercury's power comes from the air element. Hope that's a little bit of a spoiler for you. And so that's why I settled on Mercury. And it just feels right, especially also Mercury as an element is a little like you don't exactly know what you're going to get. And that's kind of Mercury's personality and things in the book is that one minute he's anxious and then maybe he's not and then all of that. And so it really just fit that name.
I got you. And can I just say that one of the things that I really like talking about Mercury being anxious is the fact that there were moments where he doubted himself and where he had to deal with, I guess, bear the brunt of the burden of being the quote unquote leader and making these decisions and knowing that making these decisions led not just me, but my friends into this place. And now I'm responsible for them. And I feel like one of the things that I used to question in a lot of books is just like, these characters are doing a lot of stuff and it seems really cool in the context of a fantasy world, but like there are like repercussions for doing this stuff. And, and it's not always the somebody bigger and badder comes after you in someone else's stead. It's I have to live with the consequences of what I've done. And what I did is undoable. It's not undoable. Yeah. You get what I'm saying. So,
yeah.
I know that we had talked about, Mercury a little bit earlier and wanting him to be able to doubt himself, but like he also has to I don't want to say deal with trauma, but essentially like deal with the trauma that his decisions caused. So how was writing that into his character? And like, was that an easy process? Like, what was that like?
So that was probably one of the most difficult things about this. My father passed away in 2008. I've lost other relatives, grandmother, nieces and nephews. So I had my fair share of grief in my life, and I think that is what allowed me to really write Mercury's moments of trauma and grief authentically, because it is a roller coaster, and one minute you're fine and then you smell a cologne and then you break down because you're reminded of that person that you're missing. And I really wanted to add that layer in because of course we see these fantasy books and we see witches and whatnot and we think that they're super powerful, and they are, but they're also they also have that capacity to feel all emotions. And I wanted Mercury to not, like I said, be that hard macho, super duper overly hyper masculine man. He has moments where he's softer. He has moments where he's, hugging his male friends, or he's, crying, and that's okay. And I really wanted him to kind of encompass everything that is allowable.
Gotcha. And I think, like I said, I think you did it really well. One of the things that I enjoyed about your book is that the characters felt very real. Like, there are moments where Mercury's not okay. There are moments where his friends are mad at him. Like, this is your fault. Like, like, we could be doing something else. And there are moments where, excuse me, there are moments where their parents come in and they're like, hey, it's okay. And you guys can come home. Sorry, you guys. I can't breathe, though. Okay. Let's try that again.
You okay?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like when I talk a whole lot, I'm like trying to be professional, not have my water bottle on camera so that you think highly of me. And
I do. Don't worry about it. I think very highly of you.
But I'm like, it's not cool? Me dying on camera. So let me drink some water. I forgot what I was saying. It's gone. It's in the ether. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I think it was Mercury, his friends being mad at him.
Oh, yes.
Moments.
You have really relatable characters, which honestly, this isn't a question. This is just for anybody who's watching. If you are looking for a book with relatable, they're not teenagers, which is something else that I really liked. I guess this is more of a new adult book. Like, the characters are in their 20s, but they're like young 20s, like 20, 21, 22. And they are in college and they're dealing with things in the real world for the first time. And they're just like not okay with some stuff. And they are like, I'll say rightfully upset about a couple of things. And some of the decisions that they make are not the best decisions. And I really liked that your story encompassed the reality of what they were doing, an unplanned life or death road trip across from California to the East Coast,
Mm-hmm.
And there are moments where I'll say criminal activity happens, and I was just like, I love it though, because realistically speaking, okay, this is a slight rant. Again, it's just one of those things that goes back to reading fantasy books where things just happen. Things just work out. Things are just the way that they are. Yeah. And I like that on their road trip, they had a lot of roadblocks. They're like, oh my God, y'all need to shower because you stink. I can't be in a car with you anymore. And
yeah.
I love that. So I guess, not a question. I just wanted to praise you. That was really well done, and I appreciated it.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way when it comes to watching fantasy. I think sometimes if it's not done right, it can just be easy, right? And I think you have to toe the line between, okay, these people have whatever power, if it's magic, if it's their, some kind of supernatural creature, yes, they are more powerful than humans. But also, stuff happens, right? You run out of gas, you stub your toe, you get into a fight with your best friend, or they tell you about yourself. Like, stuff happens, and I didn't want this road trip to just be easy, because you have to think, are they going to make it alive? Are they going to be okay? Physically, mentally, whatever, when they make it on the other side. And I really wanted to kind of put my characters through hell.
You succeeded. But speaking of that, something that, like how people say, especially if you're a writer, they're like, you have to kill your darlings. You do that in this book. So what was that process like? And also, did you ever consider any like alternate routes where they make it to the end of the book or even further along in the book? There's one in particular that I'm thinking about, but I'm not going to throw any spoilers in there for you guys. But you know who I'm talking about, Amanda.
So, Yes, I will say that was really hard to write. Again, that character is near and dear to my heart, reminding me of just my family. Um, but I feel like, again, Mercury needed to be able to step into his own. And I think that, like I said, I'm the youngest of six. And I think there's a comfort when you're the youngest sibling of, well, my older siblings, they've done it, they've made mistakes, they've already tested this road out for me. And so it's a little bit easier for me. At least that's how I felt. And that's kind of how Mercury feels, even though there are moments where he's with, feeling a little like wanting to, in the beginning, he wants to be independent. He has moments of like, well, why not me? In order for him to really achieve, level up, if you will, and step into his full power, both like magically and also just mentally and everything, what happened needed to happen, unfortunately. But, slight spoiler for you, this isn't the last time you'll see this character, if you get what I'm talking about.
Okay. I'm curious now. Okay. I guess on to the next question, and something else that I really liked about this book that I kind of want to like give you kudos for is I liked how, okay, so I'll say this. A lot of times when you read fantasy, it's kind of like the only thing happening in that world is what's happening to the characters, and like the world at large does not continue to rotate, right? I like that in your book, like Mercury and friends are dealing with their actions and their immediate world, but the world at large is still going on. There's still decisions being made and things that they have to deal with that are not entirely of their own making. And I really, really, really liked how you tied in what was happening to the bloggers. And I believe they were Freddie Carr and Cordelia Edwards. And for those of you who have not read the book, and this is not spoiler territory, but basically what happens in the book is you have commentary from bloggers throughout the story, letting you basically writing opinion pieces of what's going on in the world from, I'll say, opposite perspectives. Like they're like completely opposite. I'm not gonna lie, wanted to light Cordelia on fire a couple of times, but I feel like that was the intention, so good job. But what like inspired you to like write that into the story? Because honestly, I've never seen something done like that, and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was definitely a little bit of a risk because I haven't really seen it either. I wanted, again, to include that world, the world building, what's happening while these people are taking this trip. It's a 24/7 era now. With social media, you can know about something happening at any time of the day. News is always breaking. There's always something happening. And I didn't want the characters to exist in a silo with only dealing with what is happening to them in the immediate world. I wanted also to provide the reader with extra context of what's happening in the world around them, with what's happening in not just with the magical world, but also with the vampires, with this vampire president, with why people elected him, with this idea of vampire versus witch and who's more oppressed and all of that kind of stuff. I wanted to explore that. Writing from Cordelia's perspective was infuriating. I was definitely channeling a certain young blonde Fox News host while I was writing it. I'm sure you can kind of gather who I'm talking about.
Amy.
And and so that was infuriating. I really liked writing from Freddie's perspective. That was definitely some fun extra world building that I got to do.
Awesome. there are other things that I want to talk to you about, but they're kind of spoilery. So I'm kind of hesitant since this is alive, and people can't just skip over it. But with that in mind, without it being too spoilery, can is there anything that you can tell us about your upcoming sequel to Astera? You have it's called To Alaris, right? Am I saying that right? To Alaris in Desperation.
Yeah, yeah. Two Lyrics and Desperation. So I can say that the characters that you grew to love and maybe love to hate, the five main characters are all still in the second book.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get to know a little bit more about certain other characters, well, including Mercury's father. I don't think that's a spoiler, but
Mm-hmm.
Mercury's father plays a pretty big role in the second book as well.
Okay.
It's essentially characters kind of dealing with the consequences of their actions in book one, and also kind of a launching off point from the very last bit of the book, what they decide to do with their time after Astera takes place in book two. And Alaris is another holiday event like Astera, so it's separate, and I think you'll really like what it represents and what happens during that time.
Okay. I'm excited for it. I'm definitely going to be getting a copy of it once it's available. Um, but because I literally cannot ask you any more questions about the book, because all the other questions that I want to ask you are like very scene specific, and I don't want to spoil anybody who is watching this, because I highly recommend that you go get the book. It's really good. It's really entertaining. If you don't like it, you can tell me and I will take the hate for it. Okay, it's fine. That's how much I think that you're going to enjoy it. But to that extent, one of the things that I kind of want to shift the conversation to is like how you went about creating your book, and not in the sense of like your writing process, but more like decided to self-publish your book. So one of the things that we talk about a lot on the channel is just the differences between self-published, indie publishing, and traditional publishing, and which things to consider when choosing. So I guess my question for you becomes like, what made you decide to go the route of self-publishing?
Yeah, so I think when I first started my writing journey, I think like a lot of authors, the dream that you're sold, right, is traditional publishing, but you're going to get this advance, you're going to get an agent, it's going to be great, then suddenly your career takes off. And I think it's only now in the last couple of years people are really having that, like, spilling the true tea of it's really hard to become traditionally published. And not just that, but is it worth it?
Yeah.
And that might be a little controversial, but I think, I'm sure we both know this, right? The representation, how much am I going to have to water down my content as a Black creator for the white gaze?
Oh.
That's a big thing. And because of what this book is, because of what it talks about, I don't shy away from calling people out.
Mm-hmm.
This book, I don't shy away from having the characters just be authentically themselves. And Mercury is a young Black man, and I don't shy away from that. And I didn't want some agent to come in and kind of tell me to change things that I felt were really important to the story and who my characters are. And that was a big reason why I decided to self-publish. I also didn't want to have to adjust the magic system and make it more Eurocentric. I kind of thought about all the different things that people might have to say about it, and I didn't want to change it. And I want to continue to do that and create my own world and basically be another voice, representing Black people and Black women and Black men and our culture and what we bring to the table. And, I guess the long and short of it is I wanted to just do my thing.
I am, first of all, I can't talk, but I am 100% with it. If you're watching this channel, then you know that Written in Melanin is an indie publishing company for Black authors for pretty much all the same reasons that Amanda just said, because let's be real here. Not going to sugarcoat it. The traditional publishing world is incredibly white. There, and it's throughout. It's not just the authors. It's the editors. It's the agents. It's the publishers. It's everybody who has to make a decision. There is not a lot of representation there, and so for a lot of authors, whether they go traditional or not, the concern going into it is always, will the story still be mine by the time it goes through this process? And so I say that to say that, like, Amanda, I 100% understand where you're coming from, and I'm just always curious to know why authors choose the route that they go to, because I know there are some authors who are just like, traditional is the only way to go for me, but then I feel like there are people kind of like us where we're just like, I want to do my own thing. I don't want someone else telling me what I can and cannot do with my story, my book, my characters, and changing it to suit somebody else's taste when that was not the intention. Um,
Yeah.
but to that same end, there was something else that I was going to ask you. Um, so I'm assuming to Alaris or Alaris, which one is it?
Alaris.
Alaris. To Alaris is also going to be self-published. Do you have a release date for it yet that we can keep an eye out for?
I don't. I would say look out for it in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually working to finish it within the next couple weeks.
Ooh.
And I already have a cover finalized. I'm quite sure y'all are gonna love the cover. It is everything. That's all I have to say about that cover. And again, circling back to the second book, it's gonna be good. If you read this first book and you think, okay, these characters got put through hell, that don't stop in book 2. It don't stop.
I'm here for it though, because like, what would a book be without the drama, right? I do have another question for you about your world building, but specifically your magic system. But Benjamin posed the question of, is there going to be an after chat for spoiler talk? And honestly, if you guys want that, let us know. Amanda, I don't know what your time is like, or if you would be up for that. Well, she's nodding her head. So if you guys would enjoy a spoiler talk, let us know in the chat, and if we get at least like 3 people who want to do it, then we will definitely make it available for you guys. And if you haven't already, please leave a like on this video. That just helps the algorithm so that people can find it in the future. And we're about supporting Black authors, so like, we want people to find this interview so they can support Black authors, but yeah. That being said, I wanted to ask you about your magic system, because I'm going to be honest here, and for people who know me, they know that one of my favorite magic systems, favorite shows of all time, is Avatar: The Last Airbender. And so in my mind, I always, like, whenever there's like an elemental aspect to magic or whatever, I always kind of involuntarily compare it to that. And you had a really dope magic system. Like, I like that it went in ways that I wasn't expecting. It worked in ways that I wasn't expecting. And I like that certain characters got things that I wouldn't have expected them to be successful with from the get-go. And I like that not every character got an element, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Specifically Sloane, because this is slight spoiler, but it's not like super big spoiler, but tiny slow spoiler, is that Sloane gets the ability to like summon knives, right? Instead of an element. And I thought that was really dope. So like, how did you come up with that? Because the earth, okay, so you posted this question on Instagram and I saw it and I was like, ooh, bet I definitely want to be an earth hand. Like, forget the rest. I want the earth hand, because not going to get into moments, but there are a couple people asking for the after chat. So if you guys are okay with it, we will definitely do one after the live is over, as long as Amanda has time, because she has a life too. I can't just monopolize it.
I'm here for it.
So that being said, before I rant and get too excited, how did you come up with that system and purposely make it different from, I'll say, most things that we've already seen, I'll say?
Yeah, so I think firstly is I didn't want to I wanted to create something of my own. I didn't want to do something Eurocentric. I didn't want to have Black characters reciting, Latin, all of the spells and whatnot. I made up on my own.
Okay.
As with the different kind of the way the powers correlate with the elements. Like I said, I wanted something different, and I just thought I was always have been really fascinated by the elements as well. It's a little bit of a callback to the craft where each of them are air, fire, water, and they're kind of corresponding to the compass and whatnot. And also, I love tattoos as well. So I don't think this would be a spoiler, but there are magic tattoos in this book.
Yeah.
And a couple of the characters get those tattoos, which then imbue them with power. And I just wanted to kind of play and see what would work. I knew when I first started writing, I knew exactly what I was going to give Sloane, because what other power would have worked for this one? She is the moment, she is everything. I don't think anything else would have worked. And I just think that, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm geeking out like Sloane Love for sure right here. Because
I'm with it.
Y'all are going to love her if you haven't read it.
Like, honestly, if you read the book and you don't love Sloane, I'm going to need a dissertation on why you don't.
Yes. And so I think I wanted to play with those things, and Mercury having the powers that he has, which are based in air and intellect and everything. Again, he's somebody who's in his head all the time, and so I think it's very interesting that a lot of his powers are very like memory and mind based, and it's not extra strength or something like that. I really wanted to play with that. And again, in book 2, you'll find out more about the magic system, more, different types of powers. I mentioned Mercury's father in this, earlier, and you'll find out more about what his powers are as well. And also, he's another one of my favorite characters that I read. And so that's also why you'll see more of him.
Okay. I'm so ready for book 2, Amanda. Like, you don't even know. But that being said, all these other questions that I have are spoiler talk. So there were a couple of requests for it. So we'll do an after chat where we will be talking spoilers for the book. So if you haven't already, join our Patreon. I am going to make it so that if you are on any tier of the Patreon, you can see it. And we have a tier as low as $1. So $1 gets you into the spoiler talk. Last question I have for you on this live is, and I ask this for at every single interview that I do, if you could go back and give the younger version of yourself any writing advice, what age would you go back to, and what advice would you give yourself?
So this is a very interesting question. I was thinking about it. I honestly would go back to me 2 years ago, before I published this book, and when I was still writing it. I was so dead set on, I want to go down this certain path. Again, I mentioned I had initially thought maybe traditional would be for me. And I was also feeling really, I think, down on myself, comparing myself to other authors and kind of their journey. And I would tell myself, just be patient and continue to be persistent. Be patient with yourself, be patient with the process, and be persistent, because it's going to pay off. You're going to publish, and amazing things are going to happen for you. I published in June, and this ride has been so wonderful. I've met so many great people, not just people who really like my work, like you. I mean, this is a dream for me. And other authors, making a community, meeting other, especially like Black female authors, have been instrumental in my growth as a writer. And so I would just say, be patient, be persistent. You're going down your own path, and your path is going to be fire. So just keep going.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. That is going to be it for this live stream of Behind the Cover with Amanda Ross. Again, her book is to Astera with love, and she does have a sequel coming out later this year, closer to the summer sometime, to Alaris in Desperation. So I highly suggest that you get it, especially within the next 2 days, because she has it on sale until end of February, March 1st. It's a wonderful book. I enjoyed it immensely. We are going to be talking about spoilers in the after chat. And if you're not sure what the after chat is, it's the chat after the chat that we have on our Patreon. And this discussion will be open to all of our patrons. So $1 will get you in if you want to join, if you want to check it out. And that is it. If you are watching this now or in the future, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications so that you don't miss any future streams that we do in the future. And if you're watching this in the future, first of all, hi from the past. And then also, leave a fire emoji down in the comments if you watch the video all the way to the end and you enjoyed it, but don't have anything else to say. So yeah, that is it. Thank you guys so much for being here. And until next time, you guys, we hope your days are lovely and your books are interesting.